It's looked good the year so far. Bring up the year-to-date return on Godrej consumer products and what the stock has done in the last 1 month, and that would be reflective of the kind of interest there is in the Godrej group of stocks. Godrej Industries also, has been a beneficiary of the kind of moves that the companies within the Godrej group have, the kind of buoyancy that they have witnessed as stock prices. Adi Godrej in conversation talking about the rate cuts.
It will help put growth back on track, but I think more repo rate cuts are required. I do hope that at least 150 basis points of repo rate cuts come through before December 12th. I think CRR cuts are also required. I think we must be clear that some of the inflationary pressure in the Indian economy has come through global commodity prices, especially crude oil, and of course some others like vegetable oils, etc. Some of it has come because we have not paid enough attention to the supply chain, especially in agriculture. There's a lot that can be done, and this inflation is not because of excessive demand with low productive capacity. In fact, what happens is perhaps we are creating inflation by high interest rates which don't allow investments and don't increase the supply. It could work in fact negatively. So I'm glad we are doing it. Last time we had a repo rate reduction cycle, Indian growth did exceedingly well. You know, the last time there was a global crisis, both in terms of fiscal stimuli and monetary stimuli, India did a superb job.
Absolutely.
We were one of the best placed at that time, and I hope we can react as well this time
Mr. Godrej, the fact also is that will you blame the RBI when it says that there is, I mean, it doesn't say it overtly, but the fact is that there is far too much emphasis on monetary policy regime. There is far too much emphasis on the cost of credit without really, finance ministry or the fiscal stimulus responding to this. Would you agree with me?
Well, I think it's very important for all elements of India, whether it's the RBI, the government, the opposition, CII, or any other element, the business community, we should be concentrating more on growth. Growth is what enables us to do all the other things we want to do, whether it is inclusive growth, whether it is spreading of education skills and training. Without growth we won't be able to do much of that. So we should be clear that growth is what we are going to be after. I have offered the government, I've met the Prime Minister, that we will help you make suggestions. CII has 64 offices around the country.
Right.
We are in all the states. We can take best practices from some states to other states. Remember, all the growth doesn't come from policies made in Delhi.
Yeah.
So we can benchmark, we can spread that. If some states can have 10% agricultural growth, why should we be satisfied with a 3% agricultural growth? There are a lot of situations in electricity, in education, etc., where benchmarking the best in India can help tremendously. We want to do that.
In an interaction with EE Now yesterday, the RBI governor said something which was very candid. He said that I will not shy away from reversing a rate cut policy if demand pressures resurface. You spoke about global commodity prices, and everybody knows that crude is on the boil. I mean, NYMEX and both Brent have been on an upward drive. Do you think oil can really spoil the party for India? And that's the biggest challenge that the country faces.
It could, but I'm quite hopeful on oil, because from what I hear, I think the main reason oil is at such a high level is the Iran crisis.
That's right.
And I hear now that there are some good developments on negotiation between Iran and the Western countries. I do hope both are sensible, because you need a little give and take on both sides to solve a problem. I understand that there are good developments in that solution. If the Iran crisis can be sorted out, I feel crude oil prices globally will come down, and that could be very helpful in India. So overall, that could stimulate an increased reduction cycle in repo rates.
A fair point. And my last question to you is something that everybody, India Inc. and economists speak about in similar parlance. They do talk about fiscal deficit. Some people, and perhaps your critics, believe that India Inc. and economists at one level are obsessed with fiscal deficit. There will be slippages, and this obsession needs to be done away with. I know you don't agree with me there, do you?
What is important is, if you have a high fiscal deficit and a low growth rate, that can be very negative. If you have a reasonably high fiscal deficit, but a strong growth rate, then you can take it in your stride. So clearly we don't want to get into the kind of difficulty European governments have got into, America has got into a bit of a problem. Why take those steps? There's so many other things one can do, and one can create more revenues for the government and at the same time create higher growth. In many cases, reduction in rates of taxes will get the government more revenue. We've seen it again and again and again. It's not always higher rates of taxes that get you higher taxes.
Okay, that's the view of Adi Godrej on a variety of issues, but IGL is the stock in focus down 5% or 6%.